Okay, so we're going to look at a method of reasoning question first, question stem, and I'm previewing for you the answer choices because, well, I want to say something about the answers, but question stem first. Which one of the following most accurately describes Gamba's strategy of argumentation? Notice the key words here. We're explicitly being asked to describe how Gamba's argument works. What strategy is he adopting? Do you see what I mean when I said you're kind of floating above it all? You're looking down at the argument and you're saying, well, here's how your argument's proceeding, right? So it's almost like a little bit arrogant. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to engage with your argument. I'm just going to comment on your argument, right? You see what I mean? And now look at the answer choices and look at the first word of each answer choice and tell me what you notice. What is a pattern that you notice? They're all verbs, right? Do you see that? They're all verbs. Again, it's because we're asked to describe what the argument is doing. We're acting like the argument is a thing and it's doing some kind of action. Again, you see how it's just floating above it all. This is not what we do in weakening questions. This is not what we do in strengthening questions. We are at the level of the argument, engaged with the argument, saying whether the assumptions arguments made are either true, affirming them in some way in strengthening questions, or false, right, flipping them on their heads in weakening questions. We're at the level of the argument. Here in method of reasoning questions, in the next type of question we'll do, flawed descriptive weakening, we are not at the level of the argument. We are above the argument, right? We're looking down on the argument, saying, oh, you question a conclusion on the basis of results of the vote on the grounds that blah, blah, blah. You're questioning a claim supported by statistical data by arguing that, right? Already you can see how abstract this is. And you know, I'm not showing you what the argument is, but do you see how really it doesn't kind of matter what the argument is here in particular in this instance? Because can't you imagine a variety of arguments fitting these descriptions, right? Like, can't you imagine an argument questioning a conclusion based on the results of a vote on the grounds that people with certain views are more likely to vote, like without even knowing what vote this is, like what's the subject of the vote? Decriminalization of street drugs. Maybe we're talking about local tax changes to fund education. The point is, it doesn't matter. This answer choice is supposed to be general and abstract because it's supposed to be able to apply to not just this argument, if it's the right answer, but also to apply to other arguments. Okay, I mean, look at B. B is even more abstract. B says questioning a claim supported by statistical data by arguing that statistical data can be manipulated to support whatever the view the interpreter wants to support. This doesn't even have to be a vote, right? A is more particular, less general than B, because A at least gave us some substance. We're talking about a vote. B is even more abstract. You're just any claim supported by statistical data could potentially fit with what B is saying. That's what I mean when I say these are the cookie cutters, right? They're the shapes from which specific cookies, specific arguments are made. All right, let's get on with this actual argument and see how this all actually works out. So Gamba speaks, pretty classic opening with other people's claims, right? Munoz says claims. Southwest Hopeville Neighborhood Association, okay, that's a mouthful, homeowner association, I suppose. Right. Overwhelmingly opposes the new water system, citing this as evidence of citywide opposition. Okay, so that's the end of other people's position, right? Which we call context. And I'll say this every time. Context is super important, right? Context, other people, because it almost always serves as the referent for some referential phrasing in the author's argument below. Okay, so Gamba is about to make her argument. In her argument, it's almost certain that she's going to reference Munoz's claims. All right, so let's take a look. She says the association did pass a resolution opposing a new water system. Okay, this is a concession point, right? This is like, I'm not, Munoz, in talking about this, right, this association, neighborhood association, like there's some resolution, right? They oppose the new water system. Gamba's like, I'm not going to argue with you on that point. This is what we call a concession point, and I typically notate that with this sign, right? Yes, I concede. Yes, they did pass a resolution opposing a new water system. You're not lying about that. But, right, again, very classic maneuver. But here is my argument. Only 25 of your 350 members voted. 25 of 350, that's, what is that, less than 10%, right? 7% voted. And of the 25 that voted, 10 of them voted in favor. So 25 minus 10, that's 15. 15 voted against, right? Yes. Furthermore, the 15 that voted against the opposing vote, that's far less than 1% of Hopeville's population, right? The 15 opposing votes that you actually got when the Southwest neighborhood, Hopeville neighborhood association ran, those 15 votes, they are far less than even 1% of the entire city of Hopeville's population. So one should not assume that so few views represent the view of the majority of Hopeville's residents, which is what Muniz is trying to conclude, right? Muniz cites this, right? What is this? This refers to the opposition, the overwhelming opposition to the water system. Gamba sheds light on what this opposition actually means. What this opposition actually means, if you look closer, you're just looking at 15 opposing votes. That's it. 15 people voted no. Muniz takes those 15 no votes as evidence of citywide opposition. Gamba cautions you against that. She says, well, hold on. You only have 15 votes. Don't take that to represent the views of majority of Hopeville's residents. That's what she says. Okay, you probably sense that this is kind of confusing. It is confusing. You're dealing with one person's argument and then someone else's argument and how these two arguments interact. Do you see why this kind of builds, right? It's all progression. That's why we didn't do method of reasoning questions first. You had to build up to it. I didn't even label premise and conclusion here. Can you do that? At this point, it should be more or less taken for granted that you're able to label the premise and conclusion. If not, then do more weakening questions, right? Do more strengthening questions. Do more main point, main conclusion questions even before you enter this stage of logical reasoning prep. What is Gamba's conclusion? Right here. What are her premises? Right over here, right? All of this stuff up to here, those are the premises supporting her conclusion. Now we are asked to describe this support. Describe the support. Okay, so let's take a look first at answer choice A, which says questioning a conclusion based on the results of a vote on the grounds that people with certain views are more likely to vote. You simply have to ask yourself, is this description in answer choice A accurate? Does Gamba, in fact, question a conclusion based on the results of a vote on the grounds that people with certain views are more likely to vote? So to answer the question of does she actually do that, break this up into its component parts. Right? First of all, from your grammar lessons, do you notice something you can do with just this first bit that I'm putting into parentheses? Right? You can do this. You can do this. According to this first bit, the conclusion is modified, right? The conclusion, which Gamba is questioning, is based on the results of a vote. Is that true or false? Is Gamba questioning a conclusion based on results of a vote? See, the abstraction comes in, right? You're like, wow, God, what conclusion? What do you do? The conclusion that Gamba is questioning, surely she's questioning a conclusion. She's questioning Muniz's conclusion, right? Muniz's conclusion is there's citywide opposition. That's the conclusion that Gamba is questioning. She's saying, Gamba is saying, is there really citywide opposition? The descriptive accuracy test, which is what we're applying here, like I said, to figure out if A is right or wrong, you simply have to ask yourself, is this accurate? Is the description accurate? The descriptive accuracy test at this level just has us ask, well, the conclusion that she's questioning, was the conclusion based on the results of a vote? Well, let's take a look. Did Muniz just pull this conclusion out of his butt, or was it based on the results of, it was based on the results of a vote. Because why does Muniz think that there is citywide opposition? We're told he cites the 15 no votes as evidence of citywide opposition. So yes, the answer is yes. The conclusion is based on the results of a vote. That is the conclusion that Gamba is questioning, right? So this descriptive accuracy test, the modular application of it, 2 locations. So far, answer choice A pass on both. Here comes the rest of A. Gamba is questioning this conclusion. Now we don't really have to worry about this. Gamba is questioning this conclusion on the grounds that, right? Meaning she's using as her premises, people with certain views are more likely to vote. That's what she's saying to Muniz. Hey, I'm not so sure about your conclusion of citywide opposition because did you take into account people with certain views are more likely to vote? Do you see what I mean? That's why this part is describing Gamba's premise, or at least attempting to describe Gamba's premise by saying on the grounds that. So now to apply the descriptive accuracy test, we simply have to ask, hey, does this actually describe Gamba's premise? Is this how she's questioning Muniz' conclusion? And the answer is a big fat no. She's not saying, Muniz, I'm not so sure I agree with your conclusion because I think, you didn't take into account the fact that people with certain views are more likely to vote, and so this is kind of skewed, right? No, none of that. She is simply saying you just have way too few votes. That's all. Like, you actually had 15 people vote no, and you took 15 no votes as representative of the majority of Hopeville's residents, and that's just bad, right? I mean, look, it will be a different situation if Hopeville had only 100 residents. Then 15 votes represents 15% of the population. Then, okay, then maybe it wouldn't be so bad to take 15 votes as representing majority. But as it stands, Hopeville has, I can't do the math here, but way more than 100 residents, right? Because 15 votes represents less than 1%. Do you see what I mean? So it's not what A is saying, right? So A fails the descriptive accuracy test over here in this part. But I hope you notice that even though A fails, A could have been right. Can you think of a way to change up how Gamba argued, right? This is how Gamba argued, but this isn't how Gamba necessarily had to argue. Gamba could have argued differently. Can you think of a way to change her premises up such that A is right? Well, you could say something like, hold on a second, Muniz. I'm not so sure about your citywide opposition conclusion because while the association did pass the resolution opposing a new water system, only 25 of the 350 members voted, and sure, all 25 voted no, but those 25 members were all extremely motivated to vote no because of fill in the blank, whatever reason they might have, right? Maybe they have some financial incentive in the matter, right? Meaning those 25 no votes, because they came from people with a certain view which made them more likely to vote, that can't be taken to be representative of the majority of Hopeville residents. See, there I made an attempt to alter the stimulus in order to fit answer choice A. The reason why you want to do that with method of reasoning questions and also the next set, flawed descriptive weakening questions, is precisely because I'm telling you these are the cookie cutters. You're going to see arguments that actually fit this answer choice in the future. Right? A is wrong now, but A isn't always going to be wrong. In a previous question, A was right. In a future LR question, A will be right. Okay, so you're being handed in method of reasoning questions, in the answer choices, the instructions, the cookie cutters that the LSAT writers use to stamp out cookies. Study the cookie cutters. Understand their shape. Look at the cookie you've been given. See if you can change the shape of the cookie so that it fits the cutter. Let's look at B, which says questioning a claim supported by statistical data by arguing. You notice the parallels here between A and B, right? Again, I think we can do this piecemeal. First, we ask, is this what Gamba is really driving at? Is she really trying to question a claim supported by statistical data? And then we can look at the means by which she does it, right? In other words, just like A, you can kind of break up Gamba's argument into a conclusion descriptor, right? Conclusion descriptor. I mean, you're describing the argument. What is an argument? Argument is premise, conclusion. So therefore, you're describing the premise and you're describing the conclusion. And if the answer choices allow you to break up piecemeal into conclusion descriptor, premise descriptor, well, do that, because then it just makes your evaluation job easier, right? We apply the descriptive accuracy test on the conclusion descriptor bit and then on the premise descriptor bit. Okay, so again, for her conclusion descriptor, is she questioning a claim supported by statistical data? Now, we know what claim she's questioning is this claim, right? Is this a claim supported by statistical data? Already, I'm kind of uncomfortable, right? I mean, I guess you can kind of call it, to call like vote counting statistical data is really like simplifying statistical data, but fine, I guess I'll give it a weak pass on it, right? Sure, I guess she's kind of questioning a claim supported by statistical data. Now, the rest of this, right? The rest of this, is this how her premise works? Is she arguing that statistical data can be manipulated to support whatever the view interpreter wants to support? Oh, but you can just manipulate data in this way and it'll support the opposite conclusion. No, that's not what she's doing at all. Again, she's just revealing the fact that Literally, you have 15 no votes, and you're taking 15 no votes to represent the majority of Fulfill's residents. So, see, one way to understand this better, right? Like I said, these are all cookie cutters. One way to understand B better is just to think to yourself, what could an argument that fit B look like? So notice the broad scope of answer choice B. We're questioning a claim supported by statistical data by making this very broadside attack. Statistical data can be manipulated to support whatever view the interpreter wants to support. If this style of argumentation runs through, then effectively statistical data is useless to try to support any claim, right? Because you can use it to support whatever claim you want to support. Do you notice how broad the scope of this style of argumentation is? Right now, try to apply that here. What would Gamba have said in order to fit this, right? Muniz says the same thing. And again, we're conceding the point. We're saying, fine, whatever, let's call it statistical data that supports the citywide opposition. Gamba would have responded with something like, well, hold on, you are supporting your claim of citywide opposition by citing statistical evidence. Now, here's the problem with that. I can take your very statistical data and manipulate it to support citywide affirmation of the new water system, right? Citywide support of the system. Or I can take the very same data, manipulate it so that it looks like there's citywide opposition. Or I can take your very same data and manipulate it so that it looks like exactly half the city oppose the new system and half the city are in support of the new system. That's a style of argumentation that says you can manipulate the data to support whatever view the interpreter wants to support. And hopefully you see it's just nothing, it just looks nothing, right? It just doesn't resemble this. It's descriptively inaccurate, in other words. Next, I want you to look at D, and the first thing I want you to do is do this piecemeal analysis on D. Tell me where the conclusion descriptor is and the premise descriptor is in D. Okay, so if you need to back up to the part of the video where I mentioned that for B and A, go ahead and do that. But I want you to be able to do it because it's like the LSAT. They don't always do this, but when they do this, they're handing you a handicap. Okay, so you got to take it. So here it is. This part is the conclusion descriptor. This part is the premise descriptor. This is supposed to describe Gamba's conclusion, and this is supposed to describe Gamba's premise. So we have to say, is this an accurate description? Is this an accurate description? Okay, so for the conclusion descriptor, this is just so broad and vague. It's like, yeah, as long as she's actually criticizing of you, not like, say, affirming of you, right, or agreeing with Muniz's position, then yes, she is criticizing the view. That's broad enough. Fine, pass. Okay, on the grounds that, how is she criticizing the view? Is she doing it by appealing to the fact that that view is based on evidence which modified, right? Evidence that is in principle, right? This is all modifying evidence. What evidence is this view based on? Right, the view is based on evidence of the vote, right? So answer choice D is saying, oh, you know what, that evidence is in principle impossible to disconfirm. What? What are you talking? Just look at the vote. If it's physical ballots, you can just touch the ballots and count them. Right? What do you mean it's in principle impossible to disconfirm? That's ridiculous. Right? Something that's, I'm trying to think like, what is something that's truly, I have a hard time reconciling this, right? This descriptor of this. I feel like there's some internal contradiction here. I don't know if it's possible for something to count as evidence that is in principle impossible to disconfirm, right? In what sense is that evidence then, right? If it's in principle impossible to disconfirm. Surely evidence is empirical. Anyway, that's a tangent. Right? Hopefully you see that at this level, at the attempted description of the premise, D fails horrifically. And now we're down to two answer choices, C and E. They're very similar, right? They're very similar looking. And once again, I want you to do just that first bit, which is premise descriptor, conclusion descriptor, separate them out. Okay, so if you've done it, here's the answer. For C, attempting to refute an argument is the conclusion descriptor. By showing that is the premise descriptor. For E, attempting to cast doubt on a conclusion is the conclusion descriptor. By claiming that is the premise descriptor. And is that clear why? Right? Like why, how do you know that this is the premise? You do this by showing this, right? The support structure flows this way. I want to convince you of X by showing you Y. Which is the conclusion? Which is the premise? X or Y? Right? Of course, it's X that's the conclusion, Y is the premise, because I'm always trying to convince you of the conclusion by reference to the premise, right? Just like here, I want you to believe the conclusion by claiming some supportive statement. Okay, so it's these words here that lay out the support structure that allow us to know which part of the language is conclusion descriptor, premise descriptor. So with that said, let me have you just simply compare the conclusion descriptor first. Which conclusion descriptor do you think better matches her conclusion? Do you think her let's look at the conclusion. One shouldn't assume that so few votes represent the view of the majority Hopeville residents. Is that an attempt to refute the argument or cast doubt on a conclusion? Right? Notice the strength of these two words or phrases. Which one is stronger? Which one is weaker? This is the stronger one, right? To refute is to refute. To cast doubt is merely to cast doubt. We should go to the movies tonight. To refute that would be to say, no, you shouldn't go to the movies tonight. Whereas to cast doubt is just that, to cast doubt. Maybe we should go, maybe we should. I just want to cast doubt on the conclusion that we should go to the movies tonight. Which one do you think matches better? Right? Which one do you think matches better? Is she saying there isn't citywide opposition, or is she casting doubt on the conclusion of citywide opposition that Muniz makes? Right? One shouldn't assume that 15 votes represent the views of the majority of. It's the latter, right? She's just trying to cast doubt. It is an open possibility for Gamba that in reality, a majority of Hopeville's residents actually do oppose the new water system. She's merely saying that, look, your 15 no votes in favor, don't take that to be representative of the majority views. I'm agnostic with respect to what the majority view is. But what I'm not going to let you do is I'm not going to let you take 15 no votes to say that, oh, the majority are voting no. Do you see the distinction there? It's a subtle distinction, but it is actually a big distinction. Okay, so between C and E on this is the one that's a better description. Now let's examine the premises, okay? So for C, the claim is that contrary to what's been claimed, the truth of the premise does not guarantee the truth of the conclusion. Now, a crucial bit of language is this, contrary to what has been claimed. So who is the person who had done the claiming, right? And we're saying contrary to what you claimed. Well, you must be Muniz, right? Contrary to what Muniz had claimed. But wait a second, did Muniz claim that the truth of the premise guarantee the truth of the conclusion? Did Muniz say that, 15 no votes, that guarantees citywide opposition? No. Muniz said it's evidence of citywide opposition. There's a big difference between being evidence of a thing versus guaranteeing the truth of the thing, right? And that's the difference between evidence and what sometimes is termed dispositive evidence, right? Or think of it as super strong sufficient evidence, right? That's the evidence that guarantees the truth of conclusion. Versus you can't just take this unmodified term, evidence, to mean, every time you use the word evidence, that means guaranteeing the truth. No, that's just not what this word means. That's not how it works, right? So you see here, it's just straight up inaccurate. It failed to describe what happened in the argument. So this is a very, I offer one reason to not like C. This is another reason not to like C. Now, let's look at E. Right? Is the premise descriptor for E accurate? The statistical sample on which the conclusion is based is too small to be dependable. That's exactly right. The statistical sample is 15 people, which represents less than 1% of the population. See, that's just too small to be dependable. That's the accurate description of how the argument works. And the last thing I want to say about it is circling back to the fact that this is a cookie cutter. I want you to think of a different subject matter, not about Southwest Hopeville Neighborhood Association, not about water systems, not about 350 members, 25 voted this way or whatever. I want you to think about a totally brand new subject matter that nevertheless fits precisely this description. Where, I guess you can keep the names the same. Muniz says something, Gamba responds in some way, but about a totally different subject matter, yet E is exactly how it operates.